Go on.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If I may have your attention, please. Jazakumullah khair for coming. Actually, the minute Dr. Amr Mohsin called me, I was so excited and I told him absolutely. Alhamdulillah, we made it happen. And I want to thank also the committee, Sister Reshma Haidar as well. And with that said, I look forward and we look forward to more programs that where we can, inshallah, collaborate together. So without any further delay, I'd like to invite Sister Reshma over to the podium. So inshallah, she will introduce the program and our dear speakers who are speaking tonight. And again, my name is Samir Darwish. It's good to see that many, beautiful faces that I haven't seen for a while. And I'm the president of the MCA. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So everyone had some good meal, alhamdulillah. Was it good? Are you still enjoying the meal? Jazakallah khair. We have to thank House of Falafel for today's dinner. MashaAllah, the Entrepreneurship Club is funded by the West Valley Muslim Association. They are very generous in supporting us and paying for our meals today. But more than that, I'm actually feeling very emotional because this is home for me. This was a masjid that I just started coming when I moved here in 1990. It's been a long time, alhamdulillah. And my kids went to school here in Granada. So everyone heard my name, Reshma Haidar. I wear many hats besides hijab. Today is, by the way, World Hijab Day. So props to all the sisters who are wearing hijab. May Allah reward you for what you do. I also am an entrepreneur myself. I'm actually feeling very nostalgic. A couple of years ago, before COVID, I was actually here presenting a company that I was the co-founder of, Ramadan Legacy, because we were pitching here to a bunch of VCs. So today, life comes to full circle. I'm again back here, and we have advanced to the level where, alhamdulillah, we have success stories from within our community that are being honored today. I'm more thankful for mentors from our community. Entrepreneurship Club started before COVID in 2018 at WVMA, and the idea was to foster mentorship and career guidance and entrepreneurship mentorship. And it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for people like our chairperson. And I don't want to take too much of the time, but I would like to read his bio before I ask him to come on stage. I'm your MC for today, by the way, and you can see the agendas there. I'm very humbled that we have individuals like Dr. Amr Mohsin who are always giving their time and their strategies, their expertise for anyone from an idea stage to someone who's actually about to go IPO. So Dr. Amr Mohsin is a senior level executive and educator with over 50 years experience in the high-tech industries. Many of you who attended our events, we don't usually introduce his bio, but today it's so special that I thought we would just read the whole bio so people get to know him. He's so humble. He just comes on stage and says and invites a speaker. But I thought it would be nice to have his background. He's a seasoned serial entrepreneur, having founded and built various public-private companies, including Actel, Aptix, AIM, Hope Artificial Intelligence, which is known as Hope AI, Ascent Consulting, and Enlighten Education Corporations. He's a Life Fellow of IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, with contributions in the fields of integrated circuits and semiconductors and process technologies. He has authored over 45 US and international patents, over 70 peer-reviewed technical articles, and a chapter on integrated circuits design in the Handbook of Microelectronics. This is just going over my head, but I do know something about this. I do know because we're in the heart of the Silicon Valley, so as you can see, this is a lot of contribution from a Muslim brother to the in this sphere actually. He has served as adjunct professor at Caltech, teaching graduate electrical engineering courses. He received his PhD degree in electrical engineering and applied physics from California Institute of Technology. Any Caltech graduates here? Do connect the network. And I'll tell you why it's important to network. He strongly feels that Hope AI project, which is this current project, is his most ambitious and rewarding project to date because of the social impact, providing novel, cloud-based, scalable rehabilitation programs with advanced technologies to educate adults in custody and prepare them for successful re-entry into society and better public safety. In short, this program is actually at the incarcerated jail individuals that he's actually providing them skill sets so that they can come back and be productive contributors to the society. So without further ado, I would like to have a big round of applause for Dr. Amr Mohsen. Please welcome him and here.
Assalamu alaikum, brother and sister. Yes, we are very happy to see the crowd gathering on short notice. You know, we had to reschedule a couple of times this event because there is quite a bit of construction going on in Las Garas Mosque, and we are very grateful for MCA, President Samir Darwish, and all the staff to accommodate us and provide this great facility. So, yeah, I'd just like to give you a brief overview of what the Entrepreneurship Club is all about. You know, entrepreneurship is a passion for mine. I started several companies, successful exits, and also assisted many startup companies as well. And so our objective here is to, with the Entrepreneurship Club that we started, is to provide a forum where we get engineers, business people, entrepreneurs to network and to do this. Success stories and share also all of what they have learned through their successful journey with the community, and to provide a network here where young entrepreneur and business people can connect with each other. And the goal here is that our community here is very rich with very bright engineers and business-minded people and entrepreneurs, and we want to have more successful companies start in our community. Successful companies in our community, you know, whether they exit as an IPO or acquisition or merger, will feed back to the community, will donate to the mosques. And we're all aware of other communities, how well they were connected and built up their capabilities, and we want to do the same with our Muslim communities. We're all volunteers here, and we invite you to join the Entrepreneurship Club and those of you who would like to also participate as volunteers in expanding and enriching our programs, please do so. For information, we are planning within a matter of months a workshop or what we call a boot camp, where we have Professor Naeem Zafar, he's a professor at UC Berkeley, to provide over a period of a few weeks in the weekend a crash course on entrepreneurship. How to put together an entrepreneurship program, how to approach venture capital firm, how to build a team, how to exit, and so on. And so we'll be putting out the flyer very soon with information about it. We invite you all to participate in those boot camps that will be coming soon. And we also invite you to encourage your young children, in high school and colleges, to attend our club events here, and to also consider attending those boot camps. Without further ado here, I'd like to pass to our MC, Rashmar, the rest of the program.
For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. For those of you who are part of MCA, as you heard, our president of MCA is possibly trying to do a collaboration. But normally we have our events at the Los Gatos Mosque. It's a very open event, so we also have children and wives there because of the masjid location. Tonight I'm actually missing the children. I'm missing them too because I just flew in today from Dallas because I just became a grandma again. I was spending time with my kids and my grandkids. I wanted to not delay further, and before I begin, do we have a slide to welcome the speaker? His picture? Because I don't see his picture, so I'm going to start speaking, but maybe you'll see the picture. But it's very special for me personally to have this speaker, because when I joined the Entrepreneurship Club at Los Gatos, the first person that came to mind was actually the speaker, because I had been on the board of a STEM program company with him and came to know that he was also in our neighborhood. And the idea was that, okay, tap into the resources of our local masjid attendees and bring them over to inspire our youth. So Raghib Hussain has been a community member for a very long time. I just know him because we are both on the charge members at Open Silicon Valley, which is another networking group of Pakistani entrepreneurs. And that's why my involvement here personally is not something new, because I've been part of a networking group. I know how it grew and value that they bring into the Pakistani community. But why not bring it over to the Ummah, inshallah, and make the impact bigger for the whole community? So Raghib has been a founder and an inspiring board member for our group. He has a vast technical expertise, and coupled with astute entrepreneurship skills, they make for a very classic Silicon Valley success story. He's going to share his story today. He's best known for founding Cavium. It's a public company with the symbol CAVM, and taking it public back in 2007. He led the company as CTO, as the Chief Technology Officer from inception, and catapulted it to its status as a leader in the security and multi-core processor space, competing with Intel and Broadcom. Later, as Chief Operating Officer, he guided product strategy, business operations, and was responsible for the company's strategic direction, which led to an annual revenue run rate of $1 billion, and ultimately a successful acquisition by, anyone else? Marvell. You probably see the signs. At a valuation of $6.6 billion. Raghib has been brilliant in identifying crucial pain points in data infrastructure, paving the way for widespread adoption of the internet for corporate usage. Raghib's innovations in cybersecurity came long before Cavium. As a college student in the early 90s, he had both the foresight and engineering proficiency to implement a general-purpose file virus protection system and secure boot utility, demonstrating the ability to efficiently create elegant solutions in security. very smart. I did not know about that. Fast forward to Raghiv's to today, and alongside leading Marvel's strategy and business, Raghav is working to solve problems faced by mega-scale networking and computing, including artificial intelligence, networking, power-efficient computing, and software-defined distributed network. When he's not securing the internet or making artificial intelligence accessible for all, Raghav is passionate about giving back to the community. He's going to talk about his background further as a story, but he founded Koshish, a nonprofit organization that sponsors research chairs, provides mentoring, virtual learning, scholarships, and improves projects in low-income suburbs. Among other causes, he's a supporter of the Child Life Foundation, the Silicon Valley Education Fund, Green Scholars, Give Life Foundation, which many of you know was founded here in this masjid, mashallah, Doctors Without Borders, and the Citizens Foundation. He also serves as at the RAND Center for Asia Pacific Policy Advisory Board. Without further ado, I've taken too long of a time to introduce him, but it's an honor. Please welcome with a round of applause, Raghav Hussain.
Thank you, Rishma. It's so nice of you. Now I'm thinking I have nothing else to say. You have done a really detailed work in collecting it. Anyway, everyone, Assalamu alaikum. It's my pleasure to be here. And in reality, it is your event, so I would like it to be more interactive. Ask any question or stop me whenever you feel like. I have tried to put together a few slides and few more lessons of learning. I've tried to keep my company-related thing as least as possible because you can find it from the internet. What I have focused on my personal lessons that I have learned through experiences, through this journey, and that's what I would like to share with you, if that is okay with you. If you want to discuss something else, I'm here. We can stop presentation, we can do something else. That's perfectly all right with me. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm from Pakistan. I'm one of the 12 siblings. I'm number 10 in my family. I did my computer engineering from NED University, Karachi. And I did my master's. Then I came to the United States. I did my master's from San Jose State University, I worked for Cadence Design. I worked first for semi-custom logic, then VPNet, and then Cadence Design System, and then Cisco, and then finally I founded the company Cavium in 2000, and I'm there since then. Of course, it got acquired by Marvel. But that's kind of continued similar, I should say, employment for the last 24 years. On the family front, my oldest son is 24 years old. Mashallah, he has graduated, he is working. My daughter is in sophomore in college. She is in LA USC. My youngest son is 15 years old. He is in high school. So that's a little bit about myself. I love to play squash, and I used to play squash. Now I'm old, so I play badminton and I hike, and that's pretty much it. So with that, let's just go through. So I wanted to let you know what was the thought process behind Cavium. The thesis of Cavium actually was, which hasn't changed. We have been doing exactly the same thing for the last 24 years and building on top of things. And the thesis was that the data is increasing. The amount of data is increasing. And to handle this data, in other words, to process this data and convert it into really value, which is knowledge, you need to have more compute power. That was the basic thing. Now, of course, it's a very grandiose statement and a big thing, but how do you start? Where do you start from, right? Because there are many things. So what we realized is this because if you, in late 90s, internet was becoming, e-commerce was becoming expanding. So as it goes, data, traditional data used to be within the enterprise, but as it goes outside the enterprise, there are many type of protocol conversion needed. There are many different areas it has to traverse from. So there are security concerns, performance concern, bandwidth provisioning concern, and so on. So our idea was that, hey, the traditional CPUs, which is x86 on that, are good, very flexible, but they are designed for application where data is controlled and is small. And then for complex math problem at that time, GPUs were there, which were doing really high performance computing and so on. And the same thing, of course, is being used in AI training also, because that is also similar complex problem. But it is too powerful, too power hungry, and it's not really effective for processing the type of data processor needed. And then there were next category at that time, if you notice, late 90s, there were FPGAs or micro-coded, and Amar Masan can tell a lot about FPGA. And the idea was that, hey, you can do data bandwidth processing at a very high performance. But the problem was that there was not much flexibility, because those NPUs were micro-coded, programming that, maintaining that code, it was very difficult. So the whole thesis was, hey, can we do a new type of category processor? We call it data plane processor or DPU, and we solved this problem. And focus was really on the networking protocol, acceleration, security, quality of service, various kind of communication protocol, and so on. So that's what the higher thesis was. The base data is growing. You need different type of processing to process this data to convert into knowledge as soon as possible. Now, of course, with that, this kind of shows you a timeline. We had to find something which you start with a grandeur goal, but you can't just implement everything, right? So you have to find something. So we said, okay, let's start with the security, right? So we started a security processor, which is our Nitrox product line. In fact, even today, it's number one security processor in the world after about 24 years. We implemented the highest performance and most flexible security processor, which, by the way, it is a category by itself, and it's still leading in the market. Of course, it has gone through various generations. But then after that, we introduced the Octeon processor. So this is the data plane processor that we introduced, and I would say the entire the base, a foundation of all the products that Carrium did is pretty much based on the Octeon processor. It was a general purpose multi-core processor with bunch of acceleration and bunch of integration, networking integration, and that's what allowed various equipment vendors like firewall appliance or VPN gateways or like appliances which for security like a wireless scan, as well as the various kind of communication when you are converting data from one like a storage devices and so on. So as a result of that, it became very popular in networking tools. We went from there, from the wired networking, we looked at the wireless networking, because as you were going in 3G, from 3G to 4G, the same problem was happening there, because 3G did not have much data, 4G had a lot of data. So traditional ways of solving problem could not solve. So we did a focused product for that. Then we looked at the cloud data center. They were having a similar problem, but different way, because if you look at with cloud data hosting, the server itself became more of like a network, because each server is running many virtual machines, which means you need to do networking for that as well. And all the issues of networking also showed up over there. So this is where we made a product which we call Liquid IO. It's a smart NIC category. Once again, that is a new category which actually we pioneered, we introduced in the market. Even today, it's a very large category of the product. Then we looked at what can be done in a more power efficient way. So we implemented ARM server processor, first ARM server processor, and then also for cloud security. So that was the progression of the various products over the 16 years in Cavium. But one thing I wanted to point out, that the thesis remains the same, that hey, we need to go where data is going, and we need to solve the problem which needs to be solved to convert that data into the knowledge. Now, however, while doing that, we actually introduced new categories of the product which did not exist before. So, for example, DPUs did not exist. Single chip baseband station baseband processors did not exist for the wireless. Smart NIC did not exist. So we introduced these various categories over time. So with that, we were able to take it public, grow the revenue to a $1 billion run rate, and we were able to, of course, market cap increase accordingly. At that time, we also looked at that for further scale, we needed a broader base. So we worked with Marvel, and of course, Marvel ended up acquiring us. So this is where we formed Marvel itself was going through transformation. So the base thesis was that if we combine these things, so that we can make a industry-leading infrastructure-focused company. And that's what the base thesis was, and that's what we did implement. And Cavium was the starting point of that. We continued with that thesis, and we said that, hey, what is infrastructure? So we said, the enterprise, carrier, data center, and automotive. These are areas where we need equipment to handle large amount of data, and this is where we can bring our core expertise and implement product, which is mainly compute or security or storage or networking. So basically, if you look at Marvel's mission, is to move, store, secure and process data. That is the mission requirement. And that is very well aligned where the value is going along with the data increase. That is why now when this whole AI brought the trend of accelerated computing, we are very much relevant to that, and we are, of course, getting benefit of that trend. So with that, in Marvel, we realized we cannot do it everything ourselves. So yes, we did invest in organic growth of the IPs that we had, but we had missing components. So we went ahead and we acquired a bunch of companies. And today, Marvel has a very comprehensive portfolio when it comes to carrier, when it comes to enterprise, when it comes to cloud data center, and in fact, even in car connectivity, we are the leading provider. And the reason is that we combine our inorganic investment with the organic investment that we acquired, and we were able to integrate all those companies in a very cohesive manner. And of course, as a result of that, Marvel market cap also increased overall enterprise value. I think today it is about close to 60 billion. So that was the journey. I believe I do not have any other slide on the if you have any question related to that, that's fine. Otherwise, we can go into my lessons then. Nothing? Okay.
Anybody has any question? Please raise your hand. We can bring the mic to you.
Do we have any transition into AI? Any plans?
So Marvel actually, if you look at actually it's interesting. But just 3 days ago, Citibank has made Marvel as the #1 AI pick over NVIDIA for the exposure. Goldman Sachs actually, if you look at their AI, ETF, if you go and check what is the #1, which company is the #1, actually it is Marvel. So one of the things is, of course, everybody thinks AI is only NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is a GPU system company, basically, but that's not the only way to solve the AI problem. As all of us know, GPU does AI processing from compute, but also Every hyperscaler is doing their own AI processors too. And then for connectivity, whether you use GPU or the other AI processor, for connectivity you need copper and optical interconnect, the switches and actual optical modules. And Marvell is a leading supplier for those. So we are a very strong partner of NVIDIA as well as because most of the product that on the networking side that we do, Broadcom is the supplier for that too. So I would say our close competitor is Broadcom. But when it comes to compute, we also compete with Intel also in certain areas.
And you also are in too.
So yeah, in the cars, because if you look at cars, used to have a very low bandwidth data communication before, and again the same thing is happening in the car with the cameras and all the sensors. The amount of data which is being communicated is a lot more. So the network is converting into Ethernet-based network, and we are the leading supplier for the switches and PHYs for the connectivity within the car.
Great questions. I was about to ask about the automotive industry, but you also touched upon security and fintech, I guess.
So fintech, well, we are in the equipment security. So we are in number one in when it comes to cloud HSM, for example, cloud security. Our product is number one. If you look at firewall appliances, I would say 9 out of the 10 uses our processor in there.
I guess the next segment is your journey.
Yeah, so I'll just go through the lesson learned, and I'll give you how did I learn those. So first of all, this is nothing to do with Cavium or something I somehow learned early on and kind of continued that right from the childhood. Somehow my parents or my older siblings made it realize that the limited thing in life is time. Everything else you can have more, but you cannot have more time, right? So whenever we invest time, we should be very careful about is it really worth it or not. So there's a concept called roti. Well, in Urdu language, roti is the bread, but return on time investment. So I always keep telling everybody that, hey, any time you're spending, you do that. And somehow I had it when I remember when I was in high school, I used to divide my time in 15 minutes a lot and really wondered what am I doing with that time. And in fact, that has helped me a lot. When it came to the startup world, somebody like Faisal told us that equity is also limited. There's only 100%. So if you are giving away equity, you should be very careful about. You should be very wisely. So if I knew it early on, early on in my life, that equity thing, I would have been maybe much better place. But hey, whatever. but that is something I wanted to communicate. That is something it has helped me a lot. And then another thing which is kind of related is a lot of when we talk to a lot of people, everybody say, hey, what can we do? What idea can I work on and quickly convert in this? I mean, I learned it hard way. It takes about 10 years to make any successful business, and Faisal will tell the same. Especially for our industry, it takes to break even. It takes 7 to 8 years, and where you start really making money. So when you commit to a startup, a lot of startups fail because people give up after 3-4 years, right? And frankly, this is something when after 4 or 5 years, we were at a point where we were saying we were tired. I mean, I was thinking, this is where my VC friends actually helped me explaining and showing the data of previous companies, previous successful companies that, hey, look, you have you are not, I mean, you are just a beginning, yet you have to commit for at least 10 years, only then you will be successful. So that is another learning which I did not realize. It feels like many people start company and, you know, become successful right away. For us it feels like that, but if you go back and check, any successful company, it took almost 10 years. So that is something a lesson I learned, and like, now another thing which is actually the real thing is understanding of size of the market and if it's a growing market. A lot of us, what we do, and actually I also did the same thing, that we think something is very cool, very great, and we should just go ahead and do this thing without even understanding how big is the market, or is it a growing market or not. So when we started Cavium, of course security was my favorite topic for many reasons, we'll discuss some other day, but we say, hey, we can build really high performance, high-end security processor, and it's going to rule the world, which we did actually, and it is ruling the world. But guess what? At that time, the entire TAM of security processor was $50 million. So even if you become amazingly successful, you can't make much money. You can't even become profitable because, even if you have 100% market, it's only $50 million annual revenue, which is not worth it for any semiconductor company, right? And market size is bigger and growing, because growing is also very important, because you could have a big market like, enterprise hardware market as an example. But if it is not growing, it is really hard to get in there because there is innovation speed also slows down when things are not growing, right? Market is not growing. When the market is growing, investment is coming, a lot of people are running after innovation, and you can also bring the value. When the market is not growing, people are not looking for any new feature. They are looking for how can I reduce the cost, because they don't know. No matter what they know, no matter what you do, they cannot make more money. There is a ceiling. So the only way they can make more money by reducing the cost. So that is another angle needs to be looked at, which we also learned early on in hard way. Then the next thing is this is something I strongly believe in, even in right now, when we talk about what project do we invest on, we look into, is this something we are investing, what value can we create? Can we really create value for our customer or the industry? And the real test is, of course, if somebody is willing to pay for that, right? That is why we never try to work on product which is only hype because the hype is going on in the industry. We always focus that hey, we should work on real product solving a real problem. One of the things that we had it, I still tell to our sales guy, I said that the process of selling is not to trick somebody. The process of selling actually is giving them a gift that solves their problem, and in fact they're so happy that they're willing to give you a gift and a money in back, because they're just happy, right? So the relationship of sales and a customer should be that way, that it's a gift exchange relationship. It's not trying to make some money out of tricking them or doing something else. So that can only happen if you're creating real value where people are appreciating. This is a very important thing, the value of networking. Any VC, and Rafael will come later and will tell you that they do not invest in ideas, they invest in people. And there are many saying like this, that hey, if you are the most smartest guy in the room, leave the room immediately. because and I think in our belief also is you are what the company you keep. I don't want to say, because I don't remember if it's a hadith or not, but it is something like that. And there's a huge value of that. To tell the truth, when I started, I did not know anything, and anything I have learned is from the people actually who were in the team. And I must say, most of them were much smarter, but still much smarter than me. And that actually gives me an opportunity to exchange ideas and learn from their intellect, what are the possibilities. So that is a key value of the networking as well. Because when you meet new people, you never know what, many people say, why should I go and meet? Why should I go to this gathering and so on? You never know where would you go and what will click there, which will change the trajectory of your life and will completely change, make everything much better, right? I believe that's the way of, the overall our nature is that we actually perform much better when we put our collective mind. So that is I have learned in my own company. How we build when you build an A-class team, they actually bring A-class people. I mean, they will not hire kind of mediocre people. So as a result of that, it's a ripple effect. The first 10 people you collect are really going to define how the company is going to be. And it's if the people are there. I mean, I say it. I used to say it. I do not say it that often anymore. But I used to say that, hey, if you are here for a paycheck, please quit right now, leave, because we don't want people who are coming just to get the money. That's not the employees. That's not the partners we need. We need people who are passionate about it and who really want to create some value together. Another thing is implement sports team culture, and that is, a lot of people say a company should be a family. It's all good, family, but I think they try to say family because there should be respect and all that, which should be, but a sports team has a respect too. So I believe strongly in a sports team culture where you can call a spade a spade. If somebody is not performing, you say, hey, you are going to bring all of us down, so please leave. I mean, it doesn't make sense because somehow your thing does not align with our team. Or it's the same thing. If your quarterback gets injured, guess what? Do you wait for the quarterback to recover, or do you say, hey, I'm putting the next person and game is on, right? So that's the way it is, that everybody has to have the same goal and same focus and realize that we are on a mission and we have to go together. And at times, things change. So MVP of 20 years ago may not be MVP today. Most probably is not going to be MVP today. You need to find new MVP if you want to keep going and keep winning the game. So business is like that, sports, and I think culture should be sports in culture. Another thing which we also learned hard way, when we build our first product, we really build really high end. And when you went to the customer, they say, well, it's very good, but actually you have this 16 core, we really need 4 core product. So the thing is this, we wanted to build the biggest and baddest, but many of people, entrepreneurs coming from engineering, have that, I should say, disease to just boast about it, that, hey, I did this build big thing, but in reality, what good enough is good enough, and that's what we learned hard way. And since then, I try to make sure we are not trying to overengineer. And then it's again, many times customers say, hey, I want this sort of a thing, but in reality, they really are looking for an immediate solution, but they are not sharing the whole pain. It is important to understand their whole problem and come up with a solution, and rather than just listening to customer and implementing that thing. Because if you're listening to customer implementing that thing, you are kind of chasing the ball, and by the time you get there, things have changed, right? So you really have to have a bigger picture and understanding, and implement. So when we, for example, early on went to a very large customer, and when we say, hey, we are implementing multi-core processor, which will be general programmable. They said, no, we don't need it. We just want you to implement next higher performance of the current and use. And we say, well, but it has all these problems. many companies, the mistake that they do, they try to do more than one thing. And this is where they run out of steam because you have limited resources, limited focus. So focus is very important. Every program in my 24 years experience, the team which had focus and executed and just went deep in establishing themselves in one area before expanding, they were the team which succeeded. Others who tried to do multiple things at the same time had challenges and had to wait. So that is also another critical thing. So where are we going from here? So basically, I'm not going to talk about AI. Everybody know AI is happening, and AI actually is being used in the real applications today. And these are all the applications where some level of AI is already being used. But what I believe where the world is going, and of course Faisal will talk more about it hopefully because he's a VC, he's investing, is where all these OpenAI and Microsoft and all these, they will solve the infrastructure problem. They will come up with the application which is high volume and solving obvious thing. But what is very complicated is enterprise. So in my mind, this is the MIT research published this thing, use cases of AI in enterprise and in different areas. So these are the areas where the data is first of all is private, it's not public data. People want to keep it private, they do not want to put it in a public cloud. On top of that, data is fragmented, which means it is stored in many different type of systems. So you need a way to interface to that. How do we collect all those data together and extract from information? And also how all these enterprises have a lot of systems which are legacy systems. They're not going to all change overnight, right? So we need to figure it out. How would we connect AI intelligence, generative AI capability with those traditional application and traditional data store? And I think this is where a lot of value is, and I believe a lot of startups will be successful in that. So with that was my short presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Again, if you have questions, please introduce yourself and then keep it short. We have to go initial break at 8.
How much time do we have? Right now it's 8 minutes. 8 more minutes. Okay, listen. No problem.
My name is Rafiq Sheikh, and I actually used Cadmium processor back in 2006.
Thank you.
My question is, when you got the idea of solving the problem of this multi-core processors, how did you come about that idea? I mean, was there problem?
As I said, it's not like one morning you wake up you get the idea. It's all a big amount of time in Cadmium I spend, and even right now I spend is networking with the industry people. In fact, you need to have that network and be able to understand each other's problems and challenges and brainstorm about it. I think there's somebody's quote is they say a small mind talks about people, average mind talks about events, and the great mind talk about ideas. Somehow it got stuck in my mind since childhood. If you ask me which team is in Super Bowl, I have no clue. Although I heard it's 49ers and somebody else, I don't know. Because it doesn't really matter, right? And so the thing is, if you focus on discussing ideas, you will find people around you who will discuss those ideas with you, and this is how you come up with a problem solution.
Hi Ryan, my name is Zafar Shahid, and I have a question about your how you balance the family and the work.
That's a very good question. A lot of people ask that question, and my answer generally is you try to balance two things when they are separate. If it's one, you do not need to balance, right? Because it's just one.
Okay, let me ask a follow-up question. Do you know your kids' grades and which sports they are into?
Yeah, very well. Because I started playing every sports with them. So whichever of my kids played whichever sports, so this is a fact. until the age of 40, I did not play sports because I just did not have time. I started playing first sport squash with my older son, and then my daughter and other son also played squash. But then my daughter moved to badminton. This is how I started playing badminton. And now I regularly play badminton with my youngest son. So like 3 times a week at least. So that's fine.
Great question. Jazakallah khair for asking. I get asked this question too. I have 6 kids and I had a company, and I've seen Rabi play badminton, and he's a good player. I have another question. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Mohammed Kamara. My question is, can you share some equity mistake that you made and what you would do different today?
So early on, the business that she talked about, like in college when I made a general purpose antivirus search, I have no clue how this whole thing worked and so on. So I kind of ended up selling that for $10,000. I realized it could be same as semantic today if I had known to do the right thing, right? After that, also when I came here and I was, let's say, first only 5 people company and 3 engineers, and I was one of them. I worked on software, hardware, FPGA board, everything actually. So I was like a 50% engineering work to have that product, to get the first funding of that company. But I had no clue, and I got like 0.01% equity of that company. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I learned through that, and it's better.
Jazakallah khair. We're going to go into a break, but I do have a lot of questions.
Thank you.
And we're going to have some cap table discussions with both of them once we come back from Isha.
Yeah.
Again, a good round of applause for our speaker. Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you. I know we're going to go to a break. If I can request everyone to please come back very quickly after Isha. We may still have some chai left, but we do have another speaker, and you don't want to miss his speech and his presentation. Jazakallah khair. All of that information is on the papers that are on the table. If you get the chance, use the QR code, scan it, so you can join the WVMA club. The club is not a club. We actually have a WhatsApp group. We are on the Entrepreneurship WhatsApp group. It's a nice group. You have to abide by certain rules in communicating, but anything to do with local area events. For example, we had an event on, it was called a Startup Camp, and we got free tickets to go there, and it was a wonderful event to see a multitude of startups pitching to founders and VCs and raising funding. And just because of the club, you get that link for discounts. We also have like links to other events. For example, I'm part of a networking group, so if there's an event happening on Zoom, we posted on that. So that's the WhatsApp group we have. We also have a core team which meets every other week, and we decide on the programming. And as you heard the speakers today, it's not like overnight you get these speakers. It takes months and months to get them over and to book them and to have them, and then to book a venue. So it's a long process, but please welcome to join our club if you want to. But before you leave, try to take this paper that's on the table. Someone just asked me about the content. So what we do is, if the speaker allows us, we actually post their PowerPoints on our website. So if you go to the WVMA website, wvmuslim.org, you click on programs and you click on clubs and you click on the Entrepreneurship Club and you can see every single event that we've held, and we have the pitches. All that information is there. So how's everybody doing? Good? Alhamdulillah. Can I quiz everyone? Anyone for one point that you learned from the last speaker? Anyone wants to share one point? Okay, please go ahead.
Time management.
Time management, very good. You get to have an extra candy or the dessert there. Another thing I learned, actually, we're in the masjid, so he talked about sohbah. Alhamdulillah. Sohbah really matters, but who your companions are and who you hang out with, it really helps. Because somewhere, networking is very important. I just remembered many, many years ago, we used to host, I and my husband used to host an event here called the MCA Career Pathway. And what we did was, we all searched for kids who got into college, UC Berkeley, Stanford, or the local colleges, San Jose State, and we would actually host an event to bring these kids on stage and have the younger kids who were about to go to college meet and network with the Muslim kids who were getting into colleges. And mashallah, some of them are still networking and helping each other out, some of them are founders. So networking really matters. But without further ado, I wanted to have a last call to everyone at the chai station. Can we have everyone move up here, please? We're about to start the program. Are we live?
Yes.
For those of you who came late, we do have, alhamdulillah, thanks to MCA, a live YouTube channel today, live broadcasting this program. Otherwise, we also have an Instagram page. Normally, we go on our Instagram page at wvmuslim.org on Instagram. You can watch our past programs over there as well. Some of the speakers that have actually blessed us have been in the industry, but we waited almost a year to have a VC panel and people that are coming specifically from success stories like Brother Raghav and also the next speaker. Without further delay, I wanted to get everyone stationed and introduce our next speaker. Mr. Faisal Suhail is a seasoned entrepreneur, venture builder, and a managing partner at Presidio Partners, a venture capital firm based in the United States. His expertise lies in deep technology investments across a variety of sectors, including information technology, life sciences, energy, transition, and materials. Faisal demonstrated his entrepreneurial prowess by founding several multi-billion-dollar technology enterprises such as Actel, which, if you heard me speak in the first speaker, that's a network right there. He worked with our chairman, Dr. Mohsen at Actel, and Silicon Architects, leading them to successful IPOs or M&A exits. He's also a board member of successful companies in the renewable energy industry like Our Next Energy, I love that name, ONE1, and Ascent Elements. In addition to his professional responsibilities, Faisal has been a lecturer at Stanford Graduate School of Business and at UC Berkeley, two of the top schools we have here, sharing his insights on global entrepreneurship and venture capital. One thing I learned today, just by chance, that Faisal and I both were born and raised in Saudi Arabia. So both of us have كان مولود في السعودية وبتكلم عربي شوية. So I just learned that, and he has 4 kids, mashallah. So you are free to ask questions when he's done with his presentation, but without any further delay, please welcome with a round of applause our next speaker, Faisal Suhail.
Assalamu alaikum. So yes, she's absolutely right. Grew up in Saudi Arabia till I was 15, and then do boarding schools here. So actually, it's hard to follow Raghav. I don't know where he is, but I think he gave you guys some really amazing insights, and I think you'll find some of the things that I will say will echo kind of what you've heard. So Amir and I have known each other for a very long time. I think I was 21 or 22 when we met, so it's been a while. So what I'd like to do here is start by sharing sort of my journey, so you guys have a bit of a context of how I got here. and then share a little bit about what I'm working on these days. So kind of close the loop on that. So started out, actually hard for me to see that, so I'm going to say that from memory. So I actually did my, I think this is the older version, but that's fine. I can ad-lib a little bit. There's a couple of things in here that I wanted to talk about. So I actually did my undergraduate from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, computer electrical engineering. Then came to Stanford for grad school and left with my professor, who was also my boss, to actually team up with Amr and start working on Actel. So we talked a lot about company. There were 6 of us, PhDs from Stanford and me, who left to join Amr to build the entire technology platform there, and that was an amazing journey. So 4 years later, part of the same team, we left to start Silicon Architects. Silicon Architects was the first intellectual property company in the semiconductor space. Within 4 years, from zero to, we merged with a small company called Synopsys. Today about $90 billion market cap. So I spent 5 years writing the Synopsys business plan, heading up the business units, and doing the corporate strategic platforms to make investments and set the strategy for the next 10 years. And then I left to start another company, which we merged with Numerical in the optical lithography semiconductor chip manufacturing area, took that public. So by this time, I think it's 3 IPOs, and I'm pretty tired of building companies. So I joined Presidio Partners. So that was about 22 years ago, became a VC. So I went from being a serial entrepreneur, building companies, taking them public, selling them, to then figuring out, okay, how do I repeat this with other entrepreneurs who are better than me and can build companies that are better. So that's what I've been doing. They've raised about 1.2 billion, and I've been since then investing in very deep tech companies in enterprise hardware, software, AI, robotics, energy transition, solar, EV, batteries, material science, all of those areas. Things that a lot of VCs don't want to look at because they're very difficult, deep tech things. But you can say I failed as a VC because I met with Cavium when they were a small company and decided not to invest. So you can put a big red check mark against that. So no, it's interesting. They were an amazing company, but they were growing so fast, and we were not sure if we could, if the growth would stay where it was. They were already valued quite highly. So we decided to kind of watch for a little bit, and then we weren't able to get in because they just grew so fast. But I've known Bagir and his team ever since then. Great team. So he followed the right philosophy, which is surround yourself with people that are a lot smarter than you are. That's the only way to be. Because you might think you know everything, you don't. And that's what I did when I was 21 years old, surrounding myself with people like Amr. He was much smarter than I was and learned a lot. But I did beat him in racquetball after work. So after work, we used to go play racquetball. So one of the things, actually, since the slide I wanted to show is not here. So you see on the right-hand side, the axis. This axis obviously is age. We're all getting old. What do you think is the axis on the left-hand side? What do you think the vertical axis is? Anybody wants to take a guess? Knowledge? Okay, that's a good one. Hopefully knowledge, yes. Value, okay, could be money. Maybe you're creating more value. That's very true. What's that? Data? No. So I think knowledge, value, very correct. But what is the most important thing that I think after 38 years of doing this every day is, I would boil it down to 2 things. Network. Network is probably the most important thing, because now imagine having built probably 40 companies, having deployed billions of dollars, returned many more billions. It's the people. that I have walked my life through for the last 38 years here in Silicon Valley, that network is probably the most important thing, because you can get things done very quickly, you know who to hire, you know who to go for advice, you know who to go for money, you know who to go for partnerships. And the second most important thing that I learned was the pattern recognition. One of the key things in human brain is, it's not just AI, it's the human brain needs to see the pattern. What does a good entrepreneur look like? What does a good market look like? What does a good company look like? How do you fund it? There's a pattern that appears again and again and again, and knowing the right set of circumstances, the right set of people versus not, is a huge value that you gain on the left-hand side. So yes, we all gotten older, and hopefully made more money and created more value. But to me, those are the two most important things that I think I've learned throughout this journey. So fast forward, what am I doing now? What I'm doing now is combining the 20 years of entrepreneurship experience with 20 years of venture experience and bringing it to solve some of the biggest problems in the industry as a venture builder. So now I fund companies myself or with my partners and actually get heavily involved to build them from scratch. So not just be a VC where you invest and you sit back and you wait for the company to be successful. I get highly involved. I become typically the chairman, help with the strategy, help with a fundraise, and actually build the companies, which is a lot more fun. So I'm basically combining my two careers, 20 years as an entrepreneur, 20 years as a VC, into one thing now. The areas that I've decided are most interesting to work on is the intersection of these spaces. Obviously, we all know AI, machine learning intersects every industry, whether it's medicine, entertainment, even venture capital, it intercepts everything. The second biggest area in the world is the energy transition, going from the oil industry to a clean industry, and that touches everybody and everything. It touches every aspect of the economy. And then the third is synthetic biology, which is as we get to know more and more about science and how human genome to food to ag, how does chemistry, biology, and how can you create synthetic materials to change just what's in nature? So the intersection of that and machine learning, those are the three areas that I focus on. And I'll talk a little bit about two of them. And so the first one, let's talk about energy transition. Why is this important? So essentially you have 59 gigatons of CO2 that gets dumped in our environment every day. It comes from predominantly 4 to 5 areas. It comes from mobility and logistics. This is where you're seeing Teslas being successful, because that's where cars, planes, trains, automobiles, anything, trucks, transportation to move people, move goods. Big part of the carbon footprint. Electricity generation and distribution. How do you generate energy? Is it from coal plants? Is it from gas plants? Is it from oil plants? What are the different ways of generating energy, and how do you, distribute that energy in grids? That's a huge part of carbon. The third is food. Generation of food, from agricultural equipment to transportation to growth to water. Everything takes immense amount of energy. And then the last one is where we are right now, HVAC, buildings, building construction materials, everything else. So these are the 4 areas that essentially contribute all the CO2 to the environment that we're trying to remove. So you can see, if you look at these 4 areas, there's multi-trillion-dollar companies to be built in each one of these areas. So that's where my focus has been for the last 10 years or so, building companies in different parts of this spectrum to help change the environment. And by the way, this is a very interactive session. I usually teach at Stanford, and I like to have very few slides and keep it very interactive and have the audience ask more questions. It makes it a better, more interactive discussion. So if anybody wants to ask questions, just raise your hand. Please go ahead and ask. We have one question here. On purpose, I use very few slides.
Yeah, thank you. I am surprised that in the last slides there are no data centers. Because right now, because of the TikTok, YouTube, Reels, the data center, carbon emission by data center is going to be a big problem, especially, and with the AI also.
So that's in the manufacturing and buildings.
Okay.
So the manufacturing and buildings that's what I said, the HVAC was the first word I used, because that's where you're having power going, power generation. So part of it goes in the power generation, electricity generation and distributions, because they are the biggest users of it. So to generate that electricity, you generate a lot of carbon. And then the second place it gets used is when it gets used in the buildings to run the air conditioning, the heating, and all of that. That's where the other, sort of the transmission into the environment comes from, those two areas. Good question. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
So I am from, actually from software. So I need your advice as you started so a lot of companies. So if a person wants to go into entrepreneurship, according to me, as I'm a software engineer, I'm thinking of giving a service. But according to your experience, is it better to go into a service-based industry or creating a niche that is better? And also the second question is, if we want to focus in these two ways to get a project or something, what is the best approach to do that?
So my, I'll go back to what Raghav spoke of earlier. Be very careful. Service industries are very difficult because they have very hard to scale. Software is wonderful because it scales very quickly, but be extremely mindful of the size of the industry that you're going after, because you only have 24 hours in the day, and if you have a small market, it just doesn't attract the type of capital that you need to grow it, and it doesn't scale. So I'll talk a bit more about that. That's probably the most often question I get asked by by entrepreneurs is, VCs are very strange creatures. They keep saying no to everything. Well, how do they decide? Why do they say no to so many deals? We see 5,000 deals a year. We may do 10. So why do we say no to so many other deals? There is some really interesting criteria that I'll talk about in one of my slides. But the biggest of that is we don't want to invest in small markets, in small ideas. We want to invest in things that can scale to be very, very large. Otherwise, the types of returns our investors expect are not met. And services businesses can be good, but very hard to scale normally, and normally lower margins unless you have something unique. So I thought I'd kind of walk you guys. I'm a student of history, so I thought it would be interesting. But just before I even go here, I'll just start with the human population on Earth for millennia did not grow. We kind of petered out around 500 million people till about 200 years ago. That's it. How did we go in less than 200 years from 300-400 million people to 8 billion? Anybody wants to guess? Yes? Yeah, but what caused the Industrial Revolution? Industrial Revolution is the outcome, is not the reason. Steam engine, exactly. It's the second Boston steam engine 175 years ago was the pivotal point which, if you plot it on a log scale, you'll see an amazing, it just goes exponential about in the last 175 years. And that was because the advent of the steam engine that allows us to transport, allows us to do agriculture, to grow crops, to do things which the humanity has never been able to do. Essentially what it was, simply put, was replacing the human muscle with a machine. That's what we did, right? So that was the big breakthrough. How do you replace the human muscle, which was, for tens of thousands of years we've been plowing fields with maybe an ox, maybe a donkey, but mostly humans have been doing the work. But with the steam engine, you were able to start changing that You could ship food different places. You could produce at one place and ship to other places. So that's what caused the first generation. Then the second generation was for the Industrial Revolution, which is where capital becomes important, because now it's not humans only. You can build factories. You can build machines that can, build other things. Then we had the labor shifts too hard. This is the technology revolution that all of you guys saw in Silicon Valley, right? From the 60s, semiconductor industry, system industries, that created this revolution. And really, now we are at the fourth, what I would call it, the cognitive revolution, which is probably the most interesting. And this is where the machines, you basically are starting to augment not the muscle, not your arms and legs, but your brain. When you start to augment the human brain, that is the next biggest revolution, and we get to see it right live in our lifetime. So that's really exciting to see, as the machines can now do it. Now ChatGPT just in 12 months has changed the world, very fast. But this is just the beginning. And ironically, the first chip I worked on in 1985 at LSR Logic was the core processor for the thinking machine, the first AI computer that MIT professors designed. We designed the chip, they designed the hardware, we got it working. We're about 35 years ahead of our times because there's no data. There was no data to train a machine. Hardware can work, but there was no data to train the hardware. So we needed the web, we needed Google, we needed search engines, we needed to have, build all the data, and then we needed folks like Raghav to build Cavium chips, and NVIDIA, which by the way was my class fellow. Jensen and I went to school together. We were actually office mates, and so he went off and started NVIDIA, and so those are the types of technologies that were important, but you needed the data to train those models. So now we have the combination of both. Now we have the hardware, software, and the data. And that's really what's driving this revolution, which is exciting to see, especially somebody who's been monitoring it for about 37 years, and it has not happened, but now it's finally starting to happen right in front of us. So why is data so important? I thought, having been born in Saudi Arabia in Aramco, grew up in the Saudi oil infrastructure, and very familiar with how that entire world works. So I thought it'd be really interesting to compare the two, compare the data. And so what's similar between data and oil? They're both powerful and valuable. We all know that. It needs refining and processing. Data needs refining and processing, but how are they different? This is probably the most important thing that people are just starting to now understand. There is unlimited quantity of data. Actually, unlike oil, which you use it once and it's gone, because oil was sort of the engine of the last 200 years of bringing humanity to where we have come in terms of having energy. Data is going to be the next. In terms of physical energy, solar, wind, we've already figured out how to now produce energy cheaper than oil. So what is the next big thing that's going to drive innovation is going to be data. So how is data more important than oil? So there's no limit to data. The amount of data we're producing, just the time we've sat here, is amazing. It's exponentially growing. Data gets better as you use it. Oil gets a one-time use. You use oil once and it's gone, right? It's gone. You burnt it, there's carbon in the air now. Data, the more you use it, the better it gets. The better it gets, the more use it has. Data is zero cost, literally zero cost to transport. We got oil tankers coming from Iran, from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait, Qatar. Data just goes, it's a photon, it's electrons. It's just electrons that move without any hindrance anywhere in the world. So you can essentially move data very fast compared to oil. So this is, if you're thinking about businesses, thinking about where the value is going to get created in the future, I would really pay attention to this aspect of who is going to own the data, privacy acts, who gets to define data, who gets to resell data, all your social media data that you're giving away free to platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp and TikTok and whatever else. I mean, that's an amazing value that you are giving up as citizens to people who are collecting that data and mining, refining, selling that data. That's probably the most valuable thing. So there's a lot of discussion now. Should each one of us be our own entity, own our own data, and we get to monetize our own data with different platforms? So this is really interesting topics of discussion and interesting topics of new business models. Any questions on this before? Yes? I'm always wear a hat, but today being a hijab week, that's good. So, you know, there we go, hijab day. So I'm.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Morshed. I have a question. What do you think about the future of Silicon Valley and all the venture after 20 years from now? Because what we are seeing that China is producing in top 10 critical field in the machine learning AI that paid more than the US in prestigious journals like Nature and everything. So US actually lagging behind China in almost every field. So what is the future of from 20 years from now?
So, great question. People always ask that question. Just look at the history of Silicon Valley. I think I don't see Silicon Valley slowing down at all. I think what happens is it goes in waves. Every 5 to 7 years, we come up with a phenomenally different new value creation way. Like, and I've seen it now. You know, so. I'm older than most of you. I've seen it for 40 years almost. I was like 85. I came here to Stanford and LSL Logic from Illinois. And you know, semiconductor boom. And people were like, okay, we're done. Semiconductors are done. It's all going to Japan and to Korea. Then we come up with entire networking. You know, systems booms. And okay, well that's all going to go to China and all of that. Then we come up with Web 1.0. And then it's like, okay, well that's going to go somewhere else. Then we come up with Web 2.0, then AI. I think as long as capital is a commodity, so what matters is the education, the entrepreneurship spirit, and the risk capital that goes along with that. And Silicon Valley is extremely unique in providing those three things. I'll give you a really fun story. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was our governor, President of Russia came here, visited Google, Facebook, and was very impressed. This is Medvedev. And he went back to Russia and called Arnold and said, hey, I want a Silicon Valley of my own. So Arnold gathered 10 of us. I got invited to go with Arnold Schwarzenegger to Russia to teach them how to build the Silicon Valley, along with CEO of Intel, CEO of Grids, 4 or 5 other VCs who basically built the VC industry, Dick Kramnik, Pitt Johnson. I don't know why they picked me. I think maybe the only Muslim in the crowd. And so I met with them. They built universities, they built MBA schools, they're building factories for semiconductors, material science. And so I had breakfast with their technology minister and their finance minister one morning, and they go to me, I guess we're gonna have to tolerate failure. So next day I was supposed to give the closing remarks to the president and the entire, his cabinet and the students at the MBA school. And I said, Mr. President, you will not be able to build a Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is not buildings and schools. If your thoughts are to tolerate failure, you'll never be able to build Silicon Valley. You have to embrace failure, learn from it. And literally he's taking those notes, and at that point I thought maybe they're not going to let me leave Russia now. I'll probably be a permanent guest. But the next day we were able to fly out because I was with Arnold, so Arnold's is a good friend with them. So I think that entrepreneurship spirit to come along doesn't exist in most other places in the world. Now, we are no longer the only ones. Even in US, we're no longer the only ones. You have a nice core in Boston. Austin is starting to get a nice core. So I hope more places get that. But the core that we have, I don't think that's going to change. But innovation is no longer just Silicon Valley. That I totally agree with you. But will Silicon Valley be irrelevant? Absolutely not. I think it'll continue to innovate and it'll continue to come up with new and new ideas that will keep propelling, keep pushing it forward. So in terms of AI, Raghav also talked about this. We are seeing applications of AI, vertical applications of AI in every industry. So instead of listing these, I'll come back to this in a different slide, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of sort of my current portfolio of things that I'm excited about that I'm working on. So in the middle of it is a company called Wildcat Discovery Technologies. If you think about the intersection of AI, machine learning, and energy, they are the leaders. What do? They have captured most of the world's physical, chemistry, molecular level understanding of essentially all chemistry, where they can, using AI, look at new materials to be discovered to create better battery chemistries for EVs. Now that's something that nobody else in the world has done. It's like 40 PhDs, so massive amount of scientists, lab equipment to essentially discover new materials that can change the energy density, the safety of a battery chemistry. So they're a battery company, material company, but it is being driven from AI rather than people, what they normally take, let's say 10 years to do in terms of doing experiments of chemistry, they can probably do in 1 month. They can do thousands of chemical reactions of different chemistries and decide which ones work, which ones don't work in 1 month. But even those thousands of experiments are designed by AI as to which ones they should even look at, what materials they should not even look at. So that's an interesting example. This is a company we started and we're building, is becoming one of the top companies in this space. On the left, there's a company called Arnex Energy. You talked about that. I'm the chairman of the board of one. I helped start it. It's probably now becoming US's most important battery company. They're fundamentally doing 3 things. They have now figured out how to do 700 miles on a single charge for an EV. So you can drive your EV for 700 miles without charging the battery. Number 2, they have now the highest grid density. So all the solar energy that you generate, you have to store it somewhere so you can use it later. So essentially, they have twice the density for the grid product than the market does. So that is creating really interesting. So we got Bill Gates Fund, Breakthrough Energy as an investor, BMW as an investor, Franklin Templeton as an investor. So some of the world's biggest investors in this space are now backing this company. And now they elected me chairman, so I just have to do more work, and that's what's sneaking out to still do calls. On the right-hand side, another fascinating company. Sorry, question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, my name is Arshan.
Arshan, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Assalamualaikum, Arshan. I'm a founder, which is a pre-seed round, but I just want to ask, because you're talking about like your portfolio, what's your thesis? How do you decide what companies to invest in? What's that space like?
Okay, in terms of space or in terms of a particular company?
Let's do a particular company.
Okay, so a particular company, I will actually have a slide on that. I'll get to that, but in general, it's about teams, and it's about obviously the space. Let me pull that question because I think it's interesting. I was looking at Raghav's slides and all the lessons learned he had one by one, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, I have them all in one slide, and if you guys leave anything tonight with anything, that's going to be the one slide. And even in that slide, will be one line. If you remember that, I think you have a good starting point. Your night won't be wasted. I know I'm not that entertaining, but your night won't be wasted. Innovat is the second largest European battery company. I literally drew that on a napkin on a train from Oxford to London, and we started the company. And alhamdulillah, now it's become the second largest EV battery company. They're doing high energy batteries for flying eVTOLs to Ferrari to things of that nature. So building a US battery company and a European battery company in parallel right now, 2 of them. ESS is a grid storage battery company, already went public. Bill Gates was a co-investor in that with me as well. So you just asked me the question one slide too early, so I'm going to answer that now. So this is, probably the most, because people keep asking, what do you look for? What's a good deal? What's a bad deal? I think there's a few very simple ideas. First of all, A+ teams, because whatever business plan you are going to pitch me, I already can tell you is not going to work. Right? I'll give you, since Amar's in the room, I think my second J on the job, all the process research people are running around with their hair on fire. The fuse that was supposed to be 50 ohms, silicon came back and it was 12,000 ohms, I still remember. And people are like, oh my God, we don't have a company, right? Because of course at 12,000 ohms, the resistance is so high, signal is not going to travel, you don't have a chip that works at the speeds that you want. Within a few months, Amar's team, with his leadership, with the architecture team, the process team, we solved the problem. We had to redo everything, like new architecture, new algorithms, new everything else, and Amar, we solved it. 4 years later, the company goes public from 0 to IPO. So unless you have the A+ team, don't bother. And so look around, hire the best people. This goes back to the company you keep, goes back to, if you're the smartest person in the room, leave. Because that's not a good thing. So you need people who are smarter than you around you all the time. That's one huge thing. So we look at the team. Do we see, is this team the smartest in this space? Do they cover different aspects of, do they have good engineering? Do they have somebody who understands the markets? Do they have good leadership? In the beginning, of course you're not complete yet, but do you have the seeds of a good team to solve a very large problem? Second thing that I look for is, this is the line that I said, if you don't remember anything, just memorize these 3 things. Large, growing, underserved. Why do I say this? You only have 24 hours in the day, so if you're going to go solve a small problem, don't bother. So pick a large problem to solve. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, if it's not growing, and Raghav mentioned this as well, which is, if it's not growing, what does that mean? What's happening? It's either declining or it's stable, right? Those are the only 2 things. What happens to those markets when they are stable or they're declining? Margin crashes. You cannot make money, because that's what it means. A market that's not growing is either shrinking or stable. In both cases, you do not have the ability to expand unless you can change the market. And then underserved, meaning if there's 50 players doing the same thing, it's not underserved. If everybody, so don't enter markets that are crowded, over capacity, overserved, if you will. So these 3 concepts, I look at every company through that lens. But first and foremost, A+ team. If that's not there, no bother even looking at the second thing. But if the first one works, then you look at the second one. If the second one works, then you look at the third one, which is timing and capital requirements. Is this 2 years out, 20 years out? If it's 20 years out, wonderful. Our capital can't wait that long. 2 years is okay, 5 years is okay, 7 years is okay, but 20 years is not, because our investors are not patient. It's all about IRR, right? It's return on capital, return on time. Time is money. So if I make money 30 years from now, it's not nearly worth as much as making money 5 years from now. So time is the enemy, because that's the one thing you do not get to extend. We're only given so much. So how do you do things in the time that you have? And the capital has to be appropriate. If you come to me with an idea, okay, I need $1 million and I'm going to do this, that, it's probably not interesting for us because we need to deploy enough capital to make a real difference. But if you come to me and say, I need $3 billion to get started, well, that's also not good. So be very cognizant of how much capital do you need. Is it appropriate for the size of the market, for the industry, for the execution, for the plan? And a lot of times what happens is entrepreneurs are so deep in solving their problem, in understanding so deeply about their domain, they don't lift their head to understand what's the macro environment that they're living in. Because they live very much in there. Like they'll come and say, I have the best XYZ, and I'm the world's expert in XYZ, and I can do XYZ forwards and backwards, and I totally believe you. But is XYZ relevant in any domain, in the world, in terms of what we're looking at? So those are some of the answers to your short question, but that's really, one of the critical questions. Ability to execute quickly. So we look at that, because again, time is the enemy. So if you're going to take 5 years to do something and your competitor takes 2 years, guess what? They're going to win every time. Unless you're Apple and you sit back and you say, okay, let everybody figure out what a phone looks like, and we'll enter the phone market with a different angle, with a different product, and we have the sustainability to be able to take that market with a much better, much more expensive product. But 99% of the time, if you don't have the ability to execute quickly, you will fail. And my favorite, passion, not greed, because this is not an easy journey for VCs, but for us it's a lot easier than for the entrepreneur. Because the entrepreneur has to live with die with one idea, one company. I have 70 portfolio companies. One dies, okay, I'm very unhappy, but it's not going to change my life, right? So for entrepreneurs, if they're in it just to make a quick buck, don't bother. It's a difficult journey. It's a rewarding journey that's going to take many turns. There's going to be many sleepless nights. As I was, giving the story of Amr, I think Amr was Shafi, Doug Galbraith is one of my favorite chip designers, PhD from Stanford. He runs to me, do you have your resume ready? And I said, why? I said, I just like 2 days in the job. He goes, we don't have a solution. Get your resume ready, So you're going to have a lot of very interesting experiences in that journey, so you can't give up. You have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to keep going. There's going to be many, many walls. You have to figure out either to go through the walls, go around the walls, go on top of the walls, but you're going to have to get through the walls, because it's not going to be red carpet and you just walk in and you get to be famous and build a big, successful company. No, there is no such story. From the outside, that's what it looks like, but from the inside, it's like every week you're almost dead. Every time you have to raise a new round of funding, you're almost dead because you're running out of money. VCs aren't giving you more money. They want more traction. They want more customers. They want more this, more that. And so it's definitely a rewarding journey, but it's not one that you just sort of say, oh yeah, I start a company and I become successful, whatever success means. So those are, I would say I've taken sort of my entire career on both sides, and I try to put it in one slide, because it is just hard to kind of put all of this in deep lectures, but these are the critical things that matters in building a company. Yes?
We were about to transition into a much more fun panel with Mr. Faisal and the other speakers. So if you allow, if you want to have a question just for him, we can go ahead and ask. Otherwise,
and that's the last slide. And you can find me on LinkedIn or other places. Happy to answer one last question, and then we can go to panel.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks, it was a great presentation. So as you mentioned about creating A+ team, do you wanna, how to, based on your experience, share a quick thing about building a A+ team? And I don't know about student equity. There's many different ways to do it. I mean, based on your experience, do you have like some framework or practices you believe in?
Check your ego at the door, number one, because you cannot hire an A+ team if you have an ego and you don't want people who are smarter than you, better than you around you. That's the sure way to fail. So I know it seems so obvious, but it is so practical and aim very high. That's what I tell my CEOs. Even when we're looking for a board member, I say, okay, who is the best in the world that you would want to be a board member for this company? And somebody, one of my CEOs will say, I'll give you an example, I think the last CEO of Ford will be good. I'm like, okay, let's go talk to the last CEO of Ford and let's recruit him on the board of directors. Max, you can say no, right? So my last company, the European battery company, I went and recruited the COO of Nissan, the guy who was the godfather of the EV industry. He built the Nissan Leaf, right? He built Nissan, electrification. I brought him in as my vice chairman, and then made him chairman when I went to start the next company. A lot of people say, how did you get Andy Palmer? Andy Palmer is, CEO of Aston Martin. He is a CEO of, I said, I just called him up, said, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm gonna build. You wanna write this with me or not? And he's like, yeah, this sounds amazing. So that's what you have to do. So don't aim low, aim extremely high. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for do you have time for another question? Big round of applause for the speaker. I don't have the words to say, but I think in Arabic it's I'm just saying that it's your words. I don't know in Arabic, but maybe somebody else can translate for me. But his inspirational words for tonight were actually my golden words, and we would love to hear more. You actually ended on the board topic, and I was going to bring that question up because that's a very important topic in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is actually momentum to increase your board and diversify the board. So maybe you can take a seat and we will touch upon that question first. Thank you so much for tonight's program. As before I said that all the slides, if you give us permission, we will have them available on our website. Tonight's program is again on YouTube. You can watch it. Please have a seat. Oh, I was going to bring some water for you. I can request one of our volunteers to bring some water up here on the stage for our speakers. We are welcoming back Raghav Hussain, Brother Faisal Sahil, and Amr Mohsen. This session is kind of interesting because they're going to dive deep into their journeys and answer questions and also discuss the next phase. But I will leave you with one question about forming the board.
Yes. And
what do you look for when you're forming the board? Is that something that's the trend these days for companies, especially startups, to early on create a board that is effective? What are the features you look for board members, and pre-IPO requirements, SEC requirements we hear to have a diverse board, all of these things, if we can discuss that while we get to some water.
Great. So I think what we typically do is, in the very early stages, is typically the VCs that are on the board, and my preference is to get one independent board member that really understands that industry extremely well, either from a business perspective or from a technical perspective. So having that initially is really critical. As we build the board, next series, VCs always love being on the boards, right? They feel like they have the control. But the right thing to do is VCs to start taking a back seat and bringing in industry experts to fill those seats. So one of the trends that I'm seeing now is in the last company that one of the funds that I'm an LP in, they led the deal, and actually they asked me to take their board seat. So one trend we're seeing is get industry experts on the board rather than just VCs, because VCs have a very, singular, narrow mindset of what they're trying to achieve. The second question, Ashma, to your point, we're also seeing now legal requirements to diversify the board, which is to have female presence, have not just gender, but also some racial. Europe is much further ahead than us. Europe is now 40% female board before you can go public. NASDAQ, I think, has one gender requirement, one female. So we're very, very early in that journey. But I think it's a really useful journey because there are definitely capable people. And here's what I find different. Particularly men and women think very differently. And it's very interesting for me to see that dynamic on boards. Men tend to align on a singular strategy or whatever action we're trying to take much quicker. Women tend to ask more questions, which is good. So it takes longer to make decisions, but I think we end up in a better place. So that's just sort of a new experience for me because we're extremely heavily men-dominated industry as VCs. So most of the board members are 95% male. But that's very slowly starting to change. I don't know from your, as an entrepreneur.
No, I think you covered it really well. So early stage startup, you really need board members who have industry expertise and please never time to be hands-on. So you really need them to, as a part of your kind of extended executive team. But as you become much larger companies, you need people with different area of expertise, like governance or finance or HR or something. Because most of the things that we come across, somebody somewhere has seen it already. So it's better to bring domain experts so that you have the best people at your.
Let me add to this here also is that, when you put a board of directors together, it is a very important body for the company because it is an interface between the company and the stockholders. And, one of the main jobs of the board of directors is to fire and hire the CEO. And so you have to have a balanced board where it represents different bodies, stakeholders in the company. One body are the company itself, the executives have to be well represented on the board. Another body is the investors, as Faisal mentioned. So the third body is industry experts. Those three legs have to be well represented in the board. And another important thing is the chemistry. You have to recruit board members, from the industry as well as from the investor side that we get along with, because the board is going to face a lot of tough questions over time. And there has to be a lot of exchange of information, proper listening, a balancing of different opinions, and how to converge. The CEO and the chairman of the board have to be able to converge the various opinions that being considered to solve tough problems in a way that put the whole board together to come up with this decision that makes sense and rally the board and the company together. So it's a very important body in making a company successful. So you have to put a lot of effort in forming it, recruiting, and building the culture of the board in order to make it successful for the company.
So my question is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're working on a product or solution, at what time or the signs you look for that this is not going to work, or you pivot or you change? What are the signs that you look for? Did you get it?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think each company is slightly different, but probably the best indication is customer traction. So if the customers are just not buying, showing the love, engaging with you on the solution, then you probably don't have the right solution. So either you need to pivot, to a different market or totally a different solution. That the customers are very good at guiding you. Listen to your customer. They usually know what's needed, but listen to them and work with them to figure it out.
Yeah, so I think, as I said earlier, it's an iterative process. You have to pretty much co-architect the product with the customers. So it's not like you collected all the information and went in a dark room and started, closed door and started working. It doesn't work that way. Actually, a product from the day you thought and until the day it gets done, it evolves. And that evolution has to be partnered with the actual users of the product, customers.
Let me add also, I don't know of any company that started with a business plan and ended up being the final plan that made them successful. The management team, the founders and the board of directors have to take into account that business plan that you start with is just a guide to get started. When you have a product, you engage with the customers, you have to listen well to what the customer is saying. Because most likely you have to pivot with your plan in order to take into account the dynamics of what the customer wants. And sometimes even the customer may not know what they want, but you have to listen well to their problems and be ready to pivot. And pivoting is difficult. It's one of the most it's one of the chasms that most companies fall into, where they found that original concept is not working, and they try to change it, and they either change it too fast or too slow, or they don't have the proper resources to change it, or they can't get agreement among the investor and the board to make the change. So there is a famous chasm that startups talk about it, where there is an initial enthusiasm, that the founder have, and then they fall into the reality where the product isn't getting traction, or the customer wants something different, or there are problems that they don't know how to solve. And during this chasm is what really formed a successful company. How to pivot, how to bring the proper resources, how to listen to the customer well, and how to build up the product that has traction and has all of the elements that Faisal and Raghav mentioned about, is that it has a large market, growing market, and be able to flow with this into a very successful company.
Another area a lot of entrepreneurs and companies essentially fall into a trap is, the whole concept of Jeffrey Moore's, crossing the chasm, the bowling alley. It's, there is a few customers for any product. You can create any crazy thing and there'll be 2 people who will buy it. And just make sure that that initial traction that you're getting is not a false positive. It really is something that's going to scale beyond the first few early adopters that'll buy one of anything, right? Just to try it. And a lot of companies say, well, like so and so bought it, so this must be the right product. And then you stop innovating or stop pivoting, and you just fall into the gap. And so that's important.
My name is Mohammed Mustafa at AMD. So 2 questions. First for Faisal. Your criteria for the successful team, company, to me it's very subjective. I mean, I don't see really a way that I can take that and make like a database of, say, okay, a weighting factor of our company. I'm just wondering if you can make it more analytical, data-driven kind of thing. For Raghib, another question. For when you choose your team, it's relatively straightforward. When the company is small, you can be picky of how to put, let's say, smarter people, quality people around you. But when you start to grow, how can you keep the control of the quality of your team when you grow? Thank you.
And so in terms of quantifying the criteria of an A+ team, so there's two vectors. One is diversity of expertise on the team. So if you have two brilliant scientists and nobody who understands the market, nobody who understands the channel, nobody who understands the business side, then that's not a A+ team. That's an A+ entrepreneur, in the technical domain. So that's one area to make sure an A+ team has the expertise in 2 or 3 domains that are critical at the very beginning. You don't need the 10 vice presidents of everything to begin with, but you need those 2 or 3, 4 critical people that understand the different domains of the market that you're going after: the customer, the product, the engineering, the production. The second, which is the domain of expertise. So this is the type of expertise. Then the next is the depth of those expertise. That's where you need to look at their experiences. What have they done in that domain? What experience have they had working in similar industry? What was their success track record? Because that's all you can do. You don't know whether they're going to be successful in this company with you, but at least you can draw from the previous experience and successes, which are very critical. So you understand what knowledge they're walking in with, what, if it's more on the market, customer, sales side, what Rolodex they're walking with, their relationships that they're walking in. If it's an engineering person, what types of products that they have, taped out or designed or, created successfully, right? So those are sort of one level of criteria, and the second is the diversity. You need both.
So as I said earlier, if you hire A players, they will always hire A players. So after a while, for my company, first 250 people, I interviewed myself actually, at each one of them. But you can't keep doing it forever, right? But then you have enough critical mass, which actually builds the culture of the company. And in that environment, even first of all, we need to not lower the bar just because you have to scale. That's a wrong thing for people to believe that, oh, we have this much work, we have to hire 100 people, just lower the bar of your criteria. Completely wrong thing, because those people will become burden on the rest of the people as well. So actually your overall productivity will go down by adding those 100 people. You might have to live without those extra 100 people. In our company, sometimes recs are open for like 18 months. It just sounds ridiculous, but hey, we're not going to lower the bar, and if we can't find the right candidate, we'll keep looking. But we will not compromise, right? So and that comes from the culture that you build, that hey, this is an organization where we actually value overall experience, expertise, and performance.
Let me also add the interviewing and the recruitment process is very important in the company. It has to be properly documented. You have to have a team that does the interviewing and get all of their feedback from the interview all put together. And there is a very simple rule. I'm sure you heard it. An A staff recruits a similar A staff. A B staff recruits a C staff. And so you make sure that the team that does the interviewing and the decision is an A team. And it has to include also proper reference checks, proper chemistry. It's not just that the person has all the proper background, but it has to be the chemistry of the person matched the culture of the company. Because if you bring people who don't fit in the culture of the company, it's going to create more problems later on. So it has to be a very careful process developed inside the company. Very important process. It's similar to product development, or this interviewing is very important because one of the most important source of value in a company are the people and the culture. So it has to be well thought through, and has well documented, and people who are interviewed understand it properly and how important it is to recruit the proper person with the proper culture and the proper background.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Duha Hasi. I'm an engineer and doctor in biology, CEO, co-founder of Rio Inc. company. My question is basically for first-time CEOs, do you recommend a co-founder and how to find one? The other question is how to find VC who can also be board member, as you mentioned. Thank you.
In terms of co-founder, I don't think that title is not necessarily implies anything. I think it's more about making sure that you have the right team members, whether you want to call them co-founders or founding team members. It's not if they want to be called co-founder, I don't have any issue with that. Just really focus on somebody that complements your expertise. So if you have really deep technical expertise, get somebody with you who has more market and business side of the expertise so they can round you out in your thinking, in your approach, in your solution creation journey. So if they want to be called co-founder, the more important aspect is the equity. What type of equity do you have to get them to join you? So it's really and a co-founder can have much less equity than you as the founder, or they can have equal equity. So that's a decision that you make case by case based on what you need. And so, sorry, what was your second part of the question?
VC that comes on the board. How do you get VC that joins the board?
Yeah, VC, if they're going to invest, they're going to be on the board. So what you do is, this is also sort of age-old secret or very well-known secret, is don't seek out the venture firm, although venture firm is very critical because it gives you the name, but really seek out the partner in the firm that has expertise in the domain that you're trying to build the company. That's much more important than the name of the VC firm. So, if you have an option to take money from sort of equivalent VC firms, always focus on the partner, because it's not the firm that's going to show up to your monthly board meeting, it's going to be the partner. The input you're going to get is not from the firm, it's going to be from that human being. So making sure you pick the right person, not the firm, is a lot of times first-time entrepreneurs make that mistake. Because if the person doesn't have expertise, they can't open up, they don't have that network to open up all your doors, then firm is nice, but it doesn't help you.
Can you hear me?
No.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalid Al-Ashmouni. I work for Apple. This is a golden panel for me, because you guys are all semiconductors. So my question has actually three parts. There's one question still. So what opportunities do you see in the semiconductor to start a venture? And second part of this is what challenges do you see starting a venture in this space compared to 20 years ago? And since it's a capital-intensive space, do you still see VCs interested in this area, and where to find those VCs? Thank you.
Right here. Sitting right here.
Just to
please limit your questions to one. If you have multiple parts, pick the one that's most important to you.
We can take some offline. So
No, look, Alhamdulillah, what type of semiconductor work are you doing at Apple? Just to have context.
analog mixed signal, microprocessor.
Analog?
Analog mixed signal and processor.
Okay, got it. So I think as a VC, I have not funded a semiconductor deal in a long time. And that's probably because of the capital that you need. Forget the foundry side, just the chip design capital that you need in digital side to compete with him is, it scares me, right? Because I just can't get there. So the areas that I find interesting, and actually very recently involved in a Stanford semiconductor deal after a long time, is in that area of MEMS, analog mixed signal for mobile devices. So large volume markets, small IC solutions with some deep IP in the consumer products and things of that nature. Those are still possible because you don't need, when I was just over at Jensen's house for dinner and he was telling me he has 5,000 verification engineers and he spends $3 billion on one single chip. Okay, yeah, no VC is going to fund to go up against NVIDIA, right? So that would be as a VC, that would be my take, to look for adjacent spaces where deep analog mixed signal MEMS type of IP can be scaled very quickly with lot less capital. So very capital efficient models rather than deep capital requirements.
I'll add a little bit only. I think that your area of analog mixed signal is very good. In semiconductor, there are always opportunities whenever a new standard comes, where a new interface comes. You can always look at those and do a company, and that will be very successful because evolving standards, large company wait until it gets stable.
One other point to add too is that, as Faisal mentioned, it's hard to have VCs that want to put on the table enough capital to develop a complex chip. So the way to do it is to also seek a strategic partner, large corporation that would have an interest in the product, and it would be a combination of strategic partnership funding, some venture funding, and also some potential customer who will be using the product. You can get funding from that, and that's a way to be able to get above the threshold, to get hundreds of millions of dollars to build the chip and fab it, and test it, and be able to deploy it. We're running against time here. We were originally.
A couple more questions and we'll be done.
Okay.
One more here and then.
Thank you, fantastic presentation, very inspirational. So I want to touch on something which Faisal said, the line of the night. So you said large, growing and underserved. So I'm working on a congestive heart failure device, so I wanted to understand a little bit better. So our TAM is 60 million. Would that be large enough? And it's growing at 10%, and we believe the solution is underserved. Or how would you see that?
That would be very, in the venture world, that would be too small. We look at things that are in the billions, if not tens of billions, in terms of, TAM, because your SAM will be much less than that. And the growth needs to be probably more in the 30 to 50% area, not 10%. 10% is a very small growth in any market. So you have to kind of think bigger in terms of markets.
One thing to remember, in venture world, everything measured in dollar. Doesn't matter, there may be 100 million people, but if they cannot afford, doesn't matter.
Last one.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Mohammed Musa, founder and CEO of Deep in AI. So given enough time and money, any startup can really succeed. If the market is big and the problem that they're solving is big, market is big and the problem is real, then you can change the team, you can change the product, you can change the technology, but still the problem is still going to be there and the market is still growing. So wouldn't you just always just bet on the market and the problem that has very real value? Thank you.
No second chances in our world, unfortunately. It's a very finicky world. VCs, once they walk away, they never ever look back at that same opportunity. And that's just cultural. I don't know what it is, but
Yes, I completely agree with Sohail. However, the phrase that you are using is actually true. If you can survive long enough, you will succeed. But that by itself is saying you were able to convince enough ideas and things to raise around, and that's why you survive enough long enough, right? So that phrase by itself is a little bit misguided.
Okay, so I think we're
Okay, I think we need to wrap up here. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I have one last question. Follow up on Faisal's answer to what it takes to invest in finding company. What about those peripheral industries that are existing companies? How do you go about finding them? How do you go about finding them and investing in those once those that are not in Bill Gates' league can maybe target those companies? How do you go about that?
So repeat again when you said peripheral companies.
Batteries, they need manufacturing, they need logistics, they need things to kind of
Yes.
peripheral circle of
Yes. So basically, what you have is you have a couple of different types of investors. You know, there's private equity versus venture capital. Venture capital looks for ultra high growth, high margin businesses that can generate value in a very short period of time. Then other businesses, are great businesses around it, and they tend to go more towards private equity. Private equity comes and buys those businesses, aggregates them, and builds very large EBITDA, very boring businesses, but makes them 3x in 3 years, which is amazing return. But it's a totally different mindset and a different type of investor. So yeah, there's absolute room for that, but you don't talk to a VC about that. You talk more to a PE, private equity.
Okay, we need to wrap up here. Let me just share with you a quick word. If you like what you've heard tonight, please become a member of the club. We're all volunteers, and we have every month we have an event like that. We'll bring top-notch people like you've shared, you've heard here, to share their experience, their journey, and to network. And I believe this is a very, very important function that we need to devote our resources in our Muslim community to build up. Silicon Valley is very unique, as Faisal shared with you here. The culture, Silicon Valley is very unique, and we're in it. And we have our own Islamic values, and we want to build successful companies consistent with those values, and those successful companies will also feed back to the community. So it is imperative for all of us to maintain our identity, to build our families and our children in a community that consistent with our values, that we really put a lot of attention to this area of entrepreneurship. So please take the QR code on the table, become a member, and you'll be notified of the future events.
Jazakallah khair. Can we have a round of applause? أفكارك الملحمة اليوم بالليل. جزاkallah khair. I just wanted to share one more event that you brought up, a very important topic of supporting financially our companies. We have an Islamic Halal Money Forum online this Saturday, which is also in partnership with our program. Please join us. Maybe you'll see the link. You'll learn about all the entrepreneurs that are specifically in Sharia-compliant, halal-financed businesses. If you would like to connect with the speakers, I think Raghib and Faisal can be connected on LinkedIn. Is that okay? So special discount, you can message them and say you heard them tonight at MCA or WB, they'll add them. And they'll add you on their network, I guess.
If you have something to you can send email Raghib at Marvel.
Okay, you just started. If you have something serious to discuss, send an email to Raghib at marvel.com. Jazakallah khair. I also wanted to invite the guests back on stage for a picture with our volunteers. None of this is possible without the volunteers, so please give a round of applause for Brother Mohsen, our core team member, Muhammad Darwesh, Brother Ahmed Tarjuman, Brother Ahmed on our IT team. We did have several other volunteers that couldn't make it tonight. We have some sisters and some kids also. Jazakallah khair to my son who's been helping Ismail. Brother Humaid, if you can join us. Where is Brother? Can you please come on stage? We can have a picture. And one humble request, I don't want to be the only female here. I just want to share that please bring your daughters. Let them get inspired so they can be part of this group. Take them forward. Actually, everybody can move forward on this stage. That would be better, actually. This is better. Whose camera is this? Is this your camera? Yes. Oh.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair. If you can please, on your way out, remember to give a feedback to MCA, Jazakallah khair for hosting us. And inshallah, we may collaborate again.